The scalene muscles, they are divided into the anterior, middle, and posterior scalene muscles. You can test your members' scalene muscles later, especially those who sit for long periods. When you shake hands with your member, their hand feels damp, very moist, and the palm always seems sweaty. But such members often have tense scalene muscles because the scalene muscles are stabilizing muscles for the lateral neck. They are also important emotional muscles and assist in breathing. Under high pressure, or for those who get angry easily or have been very sad recently, their scalene muscles tend to be tense. Especially for people under a lot of stress, this area is always very tense. When they become tense, it can lead to issues such as limited head tilting and arm numbness. Additionally, if the scalene muscles are tense and the space between them is smaller, they can compress your brachial plexus nerve, causing your sympathetic nervous system to become more excited. Therefore, some people, for example, may have sweating on one hand while the other hand remains dry. For such individuals, it is often not an issue with overall breathing or a misalignment of the atlantoaxial joint, but rather the possibility that the space between the scalene muscles on one side is too narrow, compressing the brachial plexus on that side. As a result, they may experience sweating on one hand and not the other. Such individuals often exhibit certain symptoms. For example, they might experience some discomfort in the neck, especially when looking up, or they might have issues like hand numbness and a series of other problems. However, I need to remind you that not all of your clients with tense scalene muscles require frequent relaxation treatments. Some scalene muscles are not tense, and if you relax them too much, it could potentially cause visceral prolapse, or it might lead to a recurrence of hemorrhoids in the client, or issues like visceral prolapse and urinary incontinence. Exacerbating the situation could lead to such outcomes, so don't assume that their scalene muscles are tense and to prevent tension, relax them every time during personal training sessions. If there are no symptoms caused by tense scalene muscles, frequently relaxing them might actually make the client more prone to visceral prolapse. Simply put, as the fascia of our internal organs moves upward, you can think of it as a series of internal organs. The scalene muscle acts as the topmost hook. It hooks onto the first rib through the scalene muscle, and once you relax the scalene muscle, its tension becomes too low. At this point, the entire set of internal organs will move downward. You can understand it this way. It's like a hook hanging on the first rib. Therefore, many people, by frequently massaging their own scalene muscles or stretching them often, experience this effect. If the scalene muscle itself is not tense, then at this point it's possible that hemorrhoids might flare up. But not many people are aware of the connection between the two. For such members, I actually need to train their scalene muscles, ensuring they maintain a certain level of tension, because the scalene muscle also helps maintain cervical spine stability. So with anything, extremes are counterproductive. A muscle being too tight is not good, and being too loose is also not good. It needs to be able to tighten when necessary and relax when needed. This is the ideal state. If a person has one side of their body, especially their entire upper body, swollen, in cases where swelling is not easy to occur, what problem often arises when the scalene muscle is fixed, it becomes too tense, and after pulling the first rib up, the first rib cannot come back down. You can understand it as the first rib on one side being elevated compared to the opposite side, and after being raised, it cannot come back down. At this point, it will cause issues with lymphatic drainage on that entire half of the body. Consequently, this side is prone to swelling, constantly feeling bloated and numb. In such cases, simply relaxing the scalene muscle might not be effective. You also need to find a way to lower the first rib. You can help it descend by locating the first rib. Press it down when they exhale, and sometimes you might hear a popping sound. Don't chase after this sound, it's quite remarkable. As long as you lower the first rib, within about 5 minutes, the swelling on that side will subside almost immediately, as if the swelling has disappeared. It's very quick, so when there's an issue with the scalene muscles, it can lead to problems you might not be aware of. For example, it can be related to visceral prolapse, hemorrhoids, or swelling on one side of the body, swelling of the face, one eye always being swollen, or one side of the face always being swollen, and one hand on that side always being swollen can occur. I can teach you some simple assessment methods to observe this. What kind of people need to relax their scalene muscles? What kind of people need to tighten them? In fact, for your female members, especially those with limited cervical spine mobility, the scalene muscles need to be strengthened more than they need to be relaxed. Most of the time, their scalene muscles are in a state of being tight yet weak. It is because of weakness that they appear tense. Once you improve their strength, their flexibility will be released.